Good morning, Senate Agriculture back in action. We're going to spend some time talking with some hemp folks. We're going to get an introduction to Vilhemp USA. Good morning.
Yeah. Thank you all for having me come here and talk to you about what we're doing and the other aspects of agriculture. My name is Janet Curry. I'm the owner of Valley Stock Farm. I'm the only commercial hemp fiber grower in Vermont. I brought along Travis Samuels. Travis is the owner of Zion Growers, and our businesses are integrated. I'm also the co-founder of Vilhemp USA, and we have two product lines: Eco Sheet, which is our housewares division, whereby we make straws, cups, plates, and we also make 3D filament. And our other line is Tetraplex, where we make the granulate to make all of our products, and we can make many, many other products. So Valley Stock Farm, I'm kind of going to be a little bit funny here, is I've always wanted to grow hemp fiber. I was part of the 2019 parade that was coming through, and I was one of the individuals that actually made money in 2019, just so you know. But that is under a strain called Cannabis L-sativa, which is what the Farm Bill is kind of overseeing. And I kind of start off with the purpose this morning. I want to talk to you about the Farm Bill and some modifications that need to be made in it. And also I want to talk about the concept of this fantastic marriage that I see in the future of Vermont of the marriage of agriculture and manufacturing. So I'm going to start off with the Farm Bill a little bit here. Because of the fact that the Farm Bill encapsulates hemp, which is the Cannabis L-sativa, which is the CBD and the THC, hemp fiber needs to be yanked out of that and separated. The way that we grow our hemp fiber is very much like hay. We seed 40, 50,000 seeds per acre. We go in as soon as corn goes in. So as soon as that ground is at that optimal temperatures, and then we're out by mid-July, because the strain that we grow, which is a Polish strain, has a 70-day maturation. So we're out in the middle of July for a couple of reasons. Number one, as I just said, that is the maturation time of this particular strain, but it also, because we are planting male and female plants, we need to make sure that we go in and we cut right before the males start to produce the pollen, because pollen can travel anywhere between 10 to 15 miles and can contaminate either a CBD crop or, now in this case, a THC crop. So we want to be good neighbors. We want to be good agricultural neighbors. So what we do, just like hay, we go in, we cut, we get it to that 10% moisture rate, rake it, bale it, and then it goes to the Vermont Marble Museum. So we did our first test plot 3 summers ago. Remember that summer that was really, really dry and we didn't get any rain? So we got about 7 to 8 bales off those 5 acres. Fiber usually grows to 6 to 8 feet. And as I said, it grows very, very close together. So we planted that heavily so we can lower the amount of weeds, because we do not use any kind of pesticide. But because it was very dry, we didn't have the greatest proliferation in regards to height as we normally would. The following summer, we put 100 acres in, and that's when we had the torrential rains. So we were not able to harvest any. We couldn't even get a tractor on the field. Just for perspective location, we were doing this in Fairhaven, off the old airport road. I don't know if some of you, I know you heard Senator Collmore. Yep. So this past year, because I have a USDA license, I worked with an affiliate who put in 600 acres down in Alabama. Right. Okay. And we had, we're still in
Alabama.
Aliceville. So, and it's been a kind of interesting trip on there, because they have 2 growing seasons versus we have a singular growing season. So, pinning that aside, I'm going to transfer over to how Vilhemp kind of came around. Essentially, what transpired is that a gentleman reached out to Travis and was interested in the hemp that I had grown, and which is being stored over at the Vermont Marble Museum. His name is Soma Reddy. His wife's name is Avilo. They are Hungarian. They now reside in Montreal because she is she has something to do within the government. I can't think of it right at the top of my head. So just because of tentacles and connections, I met Soma and he showed me a spoon and I said, have anybody doing this in the United States? And they said, no. And I said, well, I'd like to take your business and bring it here. So that started in April of 2023. So from that point forward, I have a business partner that I used to do CBD brokering with, because not only was I successful in growing, I was also very successful in brokering CBD biomass throughout the United States and a couple different countries. So my business partner, the other co-founder, her name is Amy Quinn Dacey, and she is in Chicago. So I said, Amy, look what I got. And so this is how this all started. So essentially, I always wanted to be in the manufacturing part of this and head up this whole operation in the Northeast, because I'm looking at Travis, I'm a grower, and just by just pure connections, a year ago, we did a cross sort of business with Ben and Jerry's at some of the events that they go to where they give out free ice cream. Well, everybody was eating ice cream with a Wilhelm spoon, or Eco Chic, I should say Eco Chic spoon. So we got quite a bit of mileage off that. Of course, we're on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. Everybody was kind of seeing that. So as we are moving forward, interesting enough, an individual from the VMEC, Vermont Manufacturing Collaborative, our engineering collaborative, got one of our spoons, reached out to me and said, who are you working with? What are you doing? Where are you at? So we've had a wonderful experience, just with VMEC. And they've helped us find a compounder in Leominster, Massachusetts, which we have been getting ready to do contracts with, a manufacturer in Northfield, Williamstown, which they're very excited to work with us with our granulate. We're very excited to work with them, and also a straw manufacturer in Nashua, New Hampshire. So because New England's so small, it just everybody kind of knows each other, and you start connecting. This is great for us. One of the things, as I said, I want to talk to you all about is the Farm Bill. And because of the fact that hemp is sort of exclusive from the specialty crops, we're not able to apply for funding. And we should be able to be applying for funding.
Why can't you?
Because it's hemp.
Okay, and because of
the whole cannabinoid section of this.
Sure.
This is why.
But hasn't it been proven over and over and helped us? So that's why we're asking. Has it been proven over and over and over that there's no, they're missing a crucial component between hemp and cannabis? The part that gets you high?
Yeah.
THC.
THC?
Yes. I had a conversation about 2 years ago with a senator who was very concerned about that. And I kind of flipped the script a little bit. And I said, I'll tell you what, just to prove what I'm talking about here, I can certainly grow you a CBD plant. I can grow you THC plant, and I will grow you some hemp fiber, and I will let it go right through, and I will harvest it just like you would with a CBD or THC plant. I will cure it. I will put it in pre-roll for you, and you can see how it's nothing. It's not even the same, even though it's under that same genre of that cannabis L sativa. We have to start understanding this. We've got to separate this. We're missing out on so much from that fiber end of it. So I want to just speak about the plant itself. As I said, the stalk is 6 to 8 feet. 20% of it, which is the outside of it, is the bast. That's what they use for textiles. And as you can see, there's a lot of companies getting into that. Carhartt, Patagonia. Everybody's kind of like switching over to this. Our business is interested in the 80% of that plant, which is the hurd. And the hurd can be what they call pounded in 2 different sizes. Hempcrete requires a certain size. Large animal bedding requires a certain size, small bedding requires a certain size, and we micronize it. And that's what goes into our plastics, which is matched with a natural polymer. So our tagline is cultivate, consume, compost. Because of the fact that we have all those certifications right now from Europe, and the Europeans are much more stringent in their certifications than we are, but because we own that company and we own Wilhelm Hungary, we get to bring the patent over, we get to bring those certifications over. And so what I wanted to let everybody know here today is that because I'm going back to this happy marriage of agriculture and manufacturing. This is something that is completely different than dairy. It's something that farmers already have the equipment to do. They do not have to go through the labor intensiveness of having to buy, dry, and all that ridiculousness. And it is ridiculousness, and I have the right to say that. Okay. This is something I think that is really quite an opportunity for the state of Vermont. Now, I am a Vermonter. I come from Springfield, Vermont. My dad was the vice president of Fellows Gear Shaper Sales Division. I'm going to tell you my age because I'm not ashamed of it, but it just gives you perspective. I turned 60 in November. I grew up in Springfield, Vermont in the 80s. Everybody's mom or dad worked at either Brian Grinder, Jones and Lamson, or Fellows Gear Shaper. And I'm not just isolating Springfield. I understand there's Windsor, there's many other places where there's factories that were going on. Springfield is no longer the Springfield that I know. I don't know how long it took for everything to start getting switched over overseas, but I want to kind of like segue into this administration that we have now in Washington. So what I'd like everybody to understand is I am absolutely 100% full, on the train for manufacturing here in the United States. But we have to be very realistic here. I can make a straw in Hungary for 0.00001 cent. The straw here is 17 cents. So what are we looking at? We need to have some subsidies. We need to get Vermont, and I understand maybe the current administration doesn't really like Vermont too much, but we could certainly figure things out so we can work with them. I think that if we say, listen, we are for manufacturing. We want to be manufacturing. We want to keep jobs here. We want to make sure that not everybody, that we can keep people working here and that we have a livable wage. Now, I've been in many, many meetings where people are talking the talk, but I want everybody here is that we are walking this walk. I want to show some of my customers that we're waiting because we need to get things going here. Cisco goes through 6.2 million straws per year, per day. That is 2.4 billion straws per year. They have a purchase order with us for 2026. One of our people that work in our company is down in Jamaica. He now has contract with Sandals. Sandals wants everything here, and I'm more than happy to, put some of these things out there that you can see. We are looking at franchising in Dubai, Australia, Ireland, and the islands, in Spain. Now, am I going to be able to do all this for Vermont? No, we're going to have other areas. But as I said, I'm heading up the Northeast division of this. So as I said, there's a couple of things I want to try to get the message across here. We need to help with Farm Bill. We need to have somebody understand that we are missing out on fantastic opportunities. And number two, we need to be able to get that funding. Because right now we have to look at privatized funding, which is, I will be honest with you, is horrendously predatory. So that's the two things I wanted to put together here. I wanted to give Travis a little bit of time because I know we got because Travis, the reason why I segueing into Travis here is that Travis company, Zion Growers, owns Vermont Marble Museum. What's the St. Johnsbury one?
The I building in St.
I building,
Johnsbury.
sorry. Travis and I have been working on this now for about 3 years. What's really the beautiful part of this is that Travis has 5 train tracks in front of that marble museum. They have train tracks up at the on St. Johnsbury. So we've had conversations with Vermont Railway about how do we move this along? We can have farmers up in the Northeast and have it all brought down. And that was one of the big issues when I started growing. I've always wanted to grow hemp fiber, but the closest processing was in South Dakota. Logistically, it does not make sense for me to put anything on tractor trailers in process. It doesn't make sense. So what am I trying to say here? I've secured the compounding. I have manufacturers that are partnering with us that want to work with us. I have customers that are going to be waiting in 26 and 27. So how do we get this in Vermont? How do we make this business work? Travis is also trying to get the funding to get the hammer mills that we need. This is a very clean business. I also want everybody to understand here. We're not using water. We're using electricity. We're using, hammer mills. We're not contaminating anything. We're looking at the most cost-effective, green way of moving this around the state. We're looking at farms. Now, I went to UVM. I have a degree in genetics. I did my work on the UVM farm. I used to get up 3 a.m. and help milk cows and things like that. Agriculture is very important to me. I want to make a quick snippet about the fact that I've tried to go to the Department of Agriculture. Not too interested. Not sure, because I think they're primarily dairy. I have very good friends in the Department of Agriculture. There's no interest there.
So I don't want you to take up all your time to go. It's your time, but if you're going to be here, it needs to be beneficial to the committee to understand exactly where you're trying to get to. I think we're trying to get to it, but you're basically here because of the association between hemp and cannabis. And you are getting tied up in all of that because they're associating the two as a pair. And so you're shut out of the market as far as funding from the national bank, or even putting money into the bank, or all the things that tie up cannabis tie you up. Okay.
Have you spoken to Senator Welch? Because we can't do anything about the farm bill here.
So, to answer your question, I spoke at the Farm and Plate at Killington back in November, and James McInerney, who works as a representative for Senator Welch, approached me. And 2 Fridays ago, I had a meeting via Zoom with representatives from Fallon's office, Sanders' office, and Welch's office. We kind of had to explain the same thing. They were saying, well, their versus why don't you go to the Department of Agriculture? And so as we were presenting this, I just said, that's exactly the same thing. Our Department of Agriculture isn't on our page. VITA, which I know people at VITA, they have their lending requirements are extremely strict. And as soon as you mention hemp, they're
Okay, I want to stop you right there, not because you're doing anything wrong. I just want to bring Travis up.
Absolutely.
Because I want to be able to, maybe we can kind of tag this together at the end of it as far as the next part of the discussion. Travis, welcome. Tell us who you are.
Thank you all, gentlemen. My name is Travis Samuels. I am the co-owner and CEO of Zion Growers. We are primarily based out of St. Johnsbury. We also do some residential and commercial real estate rentals in those areas, as well as down in Proctor. As Jan mentioned, we own the Proctor Marble Museum, or former Proctor Marble Museum and Cutting Facility. It's about 170,000 square foot facility in Proctor. And then we own the I building in St. Johnsbury, which is an additional 100 to 120,000 square feet. Now, I started this business with my cousin and business partner, Brandon McFarland, about 7 years ago. Our whole impetus was that we were originally looking into CBD. CBD kind of went boom or bust rather quickly. So we decided to pivot from that and say, what can we do with all the knowledge we've gained and kind of move forward with that? We decided industrial hemp really made the most sense. The conversation was around cardboard boxes. He has size 13 feet. He's a major in the Army, so he's kind of always ordering things. And he got his shoes in this box, and he said, you know, there's the box they were shipped in, there's the packaging in the box, there's the box that the shoes comes in. Can we make this all out of hemp? And you can. So we started thinking, you know, Amazon, larger shipping, things of that nature. That kind of led us to where we are today and working with Janet, more on the plastic side of things where it's a little more forward thinking and there's a lot more room to grow overall because of all the things that plastics go into. Now, that's not to say that cardboard boxes and papers and things don't really work, but you know, it's a conglomerate of all those things working together. We can work with brown paper packaging, we can work with plastics, we can work with textiles. So what we have really tried to do, and goes back to the whole reason we're here in front of you gentlemen, is that this is really an agricultural thing. Working with Vermont farms, I'm from the Northeast Kingdom. I went to St. Johnsbury Academy and grew up in Barnet, Vermont. And over the last decade, we've lost roughly half of the farms in Vermont. It's down from just over 1,000 to just over 400. I believe it's 458 as of last year. So looking at those Vermont farms, seeing that dairy really isn't working, how do we move forward with them? Well, we said, you already have the land for what we're looking to do when working with farmers. You already have the equipment. So we started reaching out to farmers saying, we would like you to grow industrial hemp for us. Requires the same kind of equipment that you use for hay, has a lot of the same nutrient needs, land needs, things like that. You can round bale it and send it to us, and you can do all of this from the back of the tractor. Unlike CBD, where you're looking at harvesting, you know, hiring all the people, running all the drip lines, and just the crazy amount. We can minimize all of that, use the equipment you already have on hand. You don't have to go out and buy new seeders. You don't have to go out and buy new harvesting equipment. You can use what you have on hand, and we will take that in and process that.
Are you growing the hemp more like a cane or a grass? You're not trimming, you're not having to go around and do it. Actually, you're growing it as a crop, and then it gets to a certain level before it seeds out. So it doesn't seed everything out. And so then you're cutting it, drying it, cutting it, whatever you are, baling.
Exactly. Okay. You plant it, it grows. As Jan said, we don't use pesticides or anything like that. Grows in field, you chop it down, you can use a sickle bar mower or combine. Let it dry in the field, tet it as you said, make sure it dries evenly. You don't want mold, moisture, all of that.
Right.
And then you can round bale it the same way you would your hay, and we take those round bales.
Dry round bale, so it's not fermenting.
Correct.
Okay.
Mesh or twine, no plastic bales, anything like that, as I'm sure you gentlemen have heard the horror stories, molding and fermenting going on with people's CBD. We don't deal with any of that. And honestly, if I showed you a bale of industrial hemp after it was dried, you wouldn't know the difference from hay if you're looking at it.
Right. And what products are you making right now? I mean, I know what you're trying to do, but what products are you doing?
Sure. So we are essentially kind of the heart of we're the middleman or heart of all of this. So between the farmers and where Janet is, we do all of the processing for the industrial hemp. So after the farmers grow it, we purchase it from them off the field, as I said, in the round bales. We take that and then we separate the hemp into its individual parts. That's the hurd, which is the outer piece of it. It's more the wood. It looks a lot like wood chips at the end of the day.
Sorry,
The
the
hurd,
bast is the outside, the herd is the inside.
excuse me, correct.
Sorry.
Bast fiber. It's the outside. The herd makes up 85 to 90% of it. So that's the majority of it. My apologies. But we separate the bast fiber from the outside and the herd from the inside. Take those two parts, and the fiber gets conditioned and resorted. So it can be used to make textiles, all of your natural fibers, fiber fabrics, things like that. And then the herd can go into pretty much anything and everything. If it's made out of plastic, if it's made out of wood, you can make it out of hemp. You can make fuel pellets out of it. You can use it for smell remediation. You can use it for remediation on your fields. It helps for runoff, for into streams, for fertilizers and things like that. So we have basically taken what CBD couldn't do properly, and that's find the market. We reached out and we found that there's an enormous market. Building supplies right now is a multi-billion-dollar industry across, the entire world, especially green building materials. We can make panels for houses, for easier building houses. You can make insulation. You can make bat or spring insulation. The heating benefits of it, there's numerous benefits as far as vapor barriers, hypoallergenic homes, basically healthier homes overall. These are all things that are being done currently within the United States.
So where you two are right now in your business plans, are you feeling the same pain she's feeling as far as the lack of being able to get funding and what you do with your profits and all of that? Are you in the same area? Are you in the same place?
So I'm in a slightly different area. So we have set up basically everything. I have the market to sell to. I have the farmers that are ready to grow. They're looking to diversify their farms. This is something that works within the rotations, so it's easy for them. My biggest problem is the actual processing equipment. Now, I have applied for up to 7 to 10 different grant opportunities through the ag department. I've received
State ag?
Correct.
Okay.
We've been to Vito, we've been to NCIC, we've been to local banks. I have exhausted almost every funding opportunity, and I have been turned down in numerous positions and places for various reasons that some of them don't make as much sense as others. And it has led us to venture capital, which is something we wanted to avoid. We wanted to stay in state, but haven't really found the ability to make it work. As Janet was kind of saying, when she was growing up, there was a lot of factories, there was a lot more employment around those things. St. Johnsbury was much the same way,
Right.
Fairbanks scales. But what we're trying to do is industrial processing on a larger scale that can feed nationwide products such as hers. We're talking industrial, good paying, long-term jobs, additional tax revenue, and we are rehabbing buildings in these areas that aren't being used for anything currently. The I building in St. Johnsbury has been a blight. It's just one of those buildings that just stands there. They wanted to tear it down.
Right.
Proctor Marble Museum is much the same way. We have a business that fits both of those buildings, fills them out, and leaves room for ancillary.
And to have the rail
businesses.
lines right there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Rail line shipping internationally make everything
You can get
easier.
anything in the world. Yes, sir.
How many farmers right now in Vermont supplying you?
Well, we don't have any because without the processing, no one wants to take that leap with us. I've had at least 50 farmers that were saying, if you have it, you can sell it, you have the market for it, we're willing to do this.
And money wise, is it like the same average that a bale of hay would cost, or is it significant?
No, the actual cost of the farmers is about the same price as you would see for hay or corn, and the payout is substantially more. I believe the average for corn is about $840. We can do anywhere from $840 to about $1,200 per acre, depending on what you get from harvest. As Jan was saying, there, 6 to 8 feet is what you can see. I went to a field day in Pennsylvania. Some of those plants get up to 16 feet tall. So depending on kind of what your harvest is, you can see how the profits would kind of increase from there.
And what's milk cost?
Mill costs for us, for the processing equipment.
Yes.
For the processing equipment, we're looking at anywhere from $1.5 to $5 million, depending on what we get for processing equipment. We try to start on the lower end, and as we've moved along post-COVID and things like that, obviously the processing equipment has increased significantly.
Are there other states that are doing the process that you're wanting to do?
So there are less than 10 in the entire United States. Most people who do any building products, they get their material from overseas. So they're including shipping costs from overseas just to get their product because there's not enough here currently. That's the other part of the problem, is that there's not enough processing going on in America to fit out what, the Carhartts, Patagonias really need to make this financially viable. I mean, we're talking about car paneling for GM all the way down to, you could make plastic for your little ends of your shoelaces out of this. The other beautiful part of this for a state like Vermont, there's not enough land in the nation to grow everything that they need. I mean, if we're talking millions of acres, so there's really no way that we can get kind of pushed out in that market. And at the same time, you need so many processors because once you get to a certain distance away, it's about 150, 200 miles away, the cost for you to ship in that material becomes so astronomical. It just doesn't make financial sense. So having multiple processing facilities in different places also kind of feeds into why this can work for a state like ours.
Have you talked to anyone at CEDAR, which is the Chamber and Economic Development of the Rutland region?
Yes, Lyle,
Okay.
yes.
And Los Casaro, who's there, is the venture capitalist for what's called Startup Rutland at the program there. And they're going through a cycle now of having people come in for interviews to explain what they want to do with their business and provide some funding for it. I
Yes,
don't know if that's an avenue.
yes, Lyle has our complete pitch deck.
I think the biggest thing about, and I've been told this multiple times over, is that just by going to kind of the individual funding agencies, getting anything over $500,000 is kind of a long pull. And I think that given what the benefit could be overall to the state, I think there should be a way to find some way to make this work. I mean, we're talking from farmers to good paying jobs, which I know St. Johnsbury needs, I'm sure more counties than mine need, all the way down to bringing in outside money from otherwhere in the state. My community, they're in the same dollar. It's a gig economy. We can bring in outside dollars to the state that brings in more funding, more revenue, makes life a lot easier in some of the more rural communities, and it works for those rural communities. So it's something that can benefit a wide swath of people, and at the same time keeps Vermont in those very rural agricultural roots that it's always had.
And the other thing I just want to mention is that I could put this plate into a wood chipper, stick it in a manure vat, put it right back out in the fields. That's how full circle this is. As I said, we are home and industrial compostable. I almost I wish I know John Casella the third, and I've had kind of quick conversations with him, and I just said, I have the solution for having to buy more land for landfill. I said, you need to come and invest in us because you could just actually just be composting this, So as I said, the two take home messages here that I would like this committee to understand is that I need some help. I need to get this. I don't know who else to speak to besides I've spoken to the senators. I need some help. Maybe individuals such as yourself have different relationships with the senators and say, hey, listen, we got to figure something out here. And number two is that because of the funding, because of that situation with the Farm Bill, we are missing out on an opportunity. I kind of not flippantly said it, but said, there will never be enough hemp grown to tackle the plastic issue. And we have a plastic issue, whether people like it or not. And plastic is a wonderful invention. I'm not completely just like pushing it off the shelf. There's going to be some things that we cannot replace because I head up the R&D. Like we make a bottle. We just can't put anything carbonated in it. But we have lots of drinks out there. We have water bottles, we have juice bottles, we have tea bottles. We can take care of that part of it. The carbonation is going to have to stay with the plastic.
Did you have a question, sir?
And I think Senator Ingo asked this, what specifically do you want from us?
Well, first of all, as I just said, I would like to try to, if there has to be a secondary meeting or something that I would like to maybe see if the Department of Agriculture would support us, right? That's first thing. Yeah. Number two, how can we impress our senators a little bit more than what I did 2 Fridays ago in a phone call? And three, how can I bring this vision of this marriage between agriculture and manufacturing to life? Because this, to me, is just so beneficial for completely two industries that really have never had this opportunity.
Have you had a direct conversation with Ag with the Department of Ag?
Yeah, so, because I'm a UVM grad and I go to UVM Extension Services, both Travis and I have attended board review during field days, and Anson Tebbets is sat right next to me.
Sure.
Two of those stations.
So I think because I was in your business, not in your business, I was helping a lot of business in my role as real estate. I've met your two friends from Canada. They were working with somebody else. I think they were being angels to fund projects or looking to fund projects. Does that sound familiar? Were they looking to work with, people in the hemp business and funding projects?
No.
Okay.
So we're ready?
Yeah,
Danilo?
he reached out to me initially for
Yeah.
the processing. And
Well, I met some folks, exactly, I can't remember the names of them, but they were exactly
Sure.
the same story, and they're from Montreal. But there's so many people that burned up a lot of money in that, so private venture capital is probably very hard to find, so we get that, because there's people still licking their wounds over that. I know of not 5, I know of 100 people who burned up some money and all of that stuff. So I understand where it might be hard to get from the private sector, but that being said, that's probably going to be your best choice. But this is what I will give you. And that's not meant to be, oh yeah, he's being imperialistic. That's not anywhere where I want to do, because just the backstory of, again, this committee are in our first days. We've talked about that a lot today, as a matter of fact, is that we have said that anybody who's in this business of agriculture, we were going to take serious, we're going to listen to, and we're going to try to do with what we can. And that's what we'll do. I will have a conversation with Anson and see where we can go with this. I think that a lot of the ask is, as Senator Collmore pointed out, federal, which we might not be able to help with, but solid business plans, solid everything. If you can show that it can turn, there's probably some money available somewhere with it. I think that's going to be your fastest way to get some resolution of what you want to get to. I want you to succeed. I want you to be able to do with what you want to do. This is cool stuff. I like your story. But I will have a conversation and see where we can move that to.
I appreciate that.
And if I could, Senators, something that isn't necessarily beneficial to both of us directly, but would be immensely important for the farmers. The insurance and ability to know that this is something that has some kind of backing from the state, whether it be from insurance, whether it be from subsidies, whether it be anything that can be done to show that there is support there, because there's as you said, with CBD, people feel a certain way, let's say, and getting something that kind of promotes this a little more for them, to say that, this is something that's potentially real for you, as opposed to pie in the sky, $32,000 an acre as CBD was promised. I think there's really something to be said for that. Just from, the insurance and subsidy standpoint alone, is something that most of the farmers that I've spoken to are really concerned about. And, the differentiation of crops, trying to diversify wheat, soybeans, everything else that everyone's trying to do. This is something that really asks the least of them as far as a turnover and a change. So, if you do hay and corn, you can do industrial hemp, and that's really what we've tried to impress upon everyone.
The only thing I just wanted to tag on to that is that if you, as I said jokingly, that Travis and I were on the cover of Vermont Vogue, which is the Ag Review. Okay, I think it's November 24. I've been the guinea pig. I'm going to tell you why I was successful for the CBD. It's because I did my homework. I sold my product to a broker and all my product went to Belgium. I made $185,000 off 5 acres of CBD. And why? Because I grew what I could sufficiently dry. And so
You knew how to dry it.
yes, sir. And so, when it was a nightmare, let's just call it, it was a nightmare. People went bankrupt. It was very, very serious. And I'm not sitting here trying to not make that serious, but I've been the guinea pig for this. We just did 600 acres down in Alabama. Okay, if we had not had all that rain, we would have had 100 acres here in Fairhaven. Government wise, like I was chair of the planning commission for the town of Castleton for 5 years. I was commissioner of Rutland Regional Planning Commission. So I'm out there. With banks, the only other thing I just want to mention is that proof of concept. Okay, well, here you go. Here's your proof of concept. So I'm not exactly sure what more we need to do. But again, I come back to this is a wonderful marriage between agriculture and manufacturing. And if this administration wants manufacturing here, let's do it.
Sure.
Okay.
Do you have card?
I don't, they are all out of date. I apologize
Give you
about
a
that.
card.
Of course. Happy to. And we do have our website, Zion Corporation. You
Yeah.
can find us there.
Just reach out, and tell me that.
Yeah, of course, I will send you an email today.
Thank you.
I will tell you there are stars are going in front of RFK this week.
Oh, go ahead.
Because President Trump mentioned plastic. So if any of you want to keep any things I have here, I'm more than happy to let that
I'm good.
I'll
You're
take a
good?
straw.
But I,
You may take a straw.
I'm gonna say, if you're going to lunch, these are all perfect for
Yeah.
that. But thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks for
Thank
coming
you very
on.
much for coming in. Appreciate it very much.
Very
Good job. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, one of the things that I'm doing with that Northfield and making the street block.
Howdy.
There wasn't us making.
Come on in. Thanks for reaching out, man.
Thank you.
We love gifts. We love gifts, especially sweet ones.
Yeah.
I love maple syrup on a cold day.
Here you go, sweet one.
Travis, pass my bag. Grab my bag.
Thank you very much. And a fax. Okay. I'll be there.
And grab my coat.
Hey, let me get one. That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Come on in. Thank you. Don't want to get the chairs. Get another one.
Good.
You got another? Good.
Thank you.
Good.
Good teacher.
So we're gonna switch gears here. We're gonna talk to Vermont Ferris Field Days Association. We have the lobbyist for Vermont Ferris Field Days Association, Jackie Polson. She's familiar to all of us, as she's actually the president of the Farm Bureau as well. So welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you.
What do you have for us today?
We have a lot of folks who are going to talk to you about a lot of things, and we really appreciate the time that you've set aside for us. I will say I love you being a super senior because I'm older than you. And they're not coming for me. For the record, my name is Jackie Folsom. I am the lobbyist for the Vermont Agricultural Affairs. And we are here today to talk to you about funding they received. As most of you know, they received $300,000 in capital grants. And some of you will be hearing more about that this afternoon, and $110,000 in stipends, and that comes through the Agency of Agriculture's budget. Interestingly enough, we were just visiting with both the Economic Development Committees in the House and the Senate, and they asked what we were asking for, so we asked for more. And we'll see how that works. I do want to pass these out. These will tell you about the economic impact that the fairs are making in their community, and then each of them will tell you their own information. We do have the 4 fairs here that are involved in that 3-acre rule. I'm going to have them speak last, just in case there's going to be more questions to them specifically. So first, I'd like to introduce Chris Vance from, yes, you're first. Brenda Vance from the Caledonian Fair. You're such a good lead on. And I've asked them all also to let them know how long their fairs have been around, because it's quite astounding when you hear the legacy that they have.
Good morning.
Morning, Chris Vance, Caledonia County Fair. Caledonia County Fair has been going for 182 years. I've not been there for all of them, but Dick Lawrence was.
Yeah. So Caldwell was too. He's a super senior.
Just again, want to thank you, for the stipend money that we get every year. It's critically important. I would just throw around some pictures if you're not familiar with our fair, just to kind of show you some things that we've done, with the stipend money or the grant money over the years. I think one of the things that's interesting, as you'll see, Lawrence Arena, was built, many years ago, for a sum of $52,000 for the complete, building. That doesn't happen anymore. I can tell you that our grant money that we got last year and what, the money that we're getting this year is going into just putting a 14-foot extension on each side. And that extension alone is $118,000 for a building that once upon a time cost us 50 to put the whole thing together. Not surprising. But again, I just shared that, the funding helps, with bringing that in. That infrastructure upgrade is imperative for us to continue to be viable and, continue to provide a good place. I mentioned, already today, that we try to utilize the space to the best of ability. Caledonia County got tremendous flooding this past year, and we were asked by Team Rubicon. They could not find any place to host, meaning to provide housing and provide food for the volunteers that they brought in to help the community. And they had over 60 volunteers, and they used our facility not once but twice because we had flooding twice. We also, this past year, we donated our opening day gate admission 100%, which ended up being $25,000 that we donated to the local community to support flooding. Those things happen, and we're able to continue to function really because of the support of everybody here. So
Now you're taking the 300,000 of that grant, splitting it 10 ways, so your portion is $30,000.
correct. Yeah, so we all, we get an equal portion of the capital grant and the stipend money. I would just say for information's sake, we give out at our fair over $60,000 in premiums. And really that is to entice, all of the, local, folks, whether it be cattle department or various other activities, but, to encourage those people to continue to come back and support our event by showing up. So, but that's good. The infrastructure that we've been able to do and improve has created us, our last 5 years has really been focused on the cattle department. Our cattle department, barns, had, many of them were over 50 years old and really in, kind of tough shape. We've been able to upgrade those. And I would just say that because of that, we were able to pull the New England Holstein show that has traditionally been held in New Hampshire at one of the fairgrounds in New Hampshire. That came to Caledonia County last year. We'll be there this year. We'll be there 3 more years. So we were able to pull that back into the state, which we kind of look at as positive impact to the state. So that's all I wanted to say.
Chris, thank you very much. Any questions for Chris?
Randy?
Good morning.
Good
Thank you
morning.
for your time. I'm Randy Bean from Memorial County Field Days. This past year, we replaced one of our main buildings, Harlow Hall. Put up a new building. We thank you very much for the grant money and stipend. This year, we're working on the White Arena, which is our horse arena. At the moment, it's sod, and we are going to have it sand, so it's more compliant and be able to expand like the Gymkhana show, because that's a good draw to the fair. Another thing we're doing, I myself am in charge of the animal barn, which in the past couple of years, we've acquired new pens, which are like 10 by 10 kennels. And I think at the moment I have 23 cages now, and the barn is completely full. The past couple of years, I've had to turn people away who want to bring animals. It's quite a good draw for the fair. And then this year, I was able to touch base with Steve Lyons from Stanner, and he's going to be coming on Friday, the 18th of July, doing a working dog demonstration. And then he's going to be doing another one on Sunday. And a lot of people very interested in that. Interested in that. And I am quite certain that our fair has been operational now 64 years.
Well, good.
And I think that is much for me.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it, Randy, very, very much.
Randy?
I am Tim Shea, Champlain Valley Exposition, and I want to echo those before me, just thank you for the support over the years. This past year, we received a grant of $33,000 and we replaced the roof on the Blue Ribbon Pavilion building. If anyone's at Senator Mazza's Celebration of Life, it's a building we use all the time, and it's an $80,000 new roof. 33 came from the state, and we covered the balance. Over the years, electrical upgrades, I think you'll hear from all of us that we continue to do electrical upgrades, and it's not inexpensive. And we use the state grant, and again, always matching beyond requirements with local support that we get. There's so much aging infrastructure in all these fairgrounds because you're only using it for 10 days out of the years. A lot of it, a lot of the equipment. So maintaining it is a challenge. And I want to also comment on the aside from the fair, the roles that the fairgrounds play in communities. During COVID, we were a surge hospital, a vaccine clinic, a testing site. Vermont State Police are there at our facility free of charge a couple times a month, training, and we're more than happy to host them. Essex Fire Department, there's very few places where you can test hosing and run it all out. They're there on a regular basis, as is Burlington Police, Essex Police, and again, that's all free of charge. When bad things happen in community, be it flooding or something, fairgrounds are often sought after because you need space, you need facilities and infrastructure. We stand ready to help out however we can, but I appreciate your time here today and your ongoing support.
We appreciate you. We appreciate what you guys do for the community there. You guys do a lot.
Oh, Creator, yeah, we're also the proud owner of 33 impervious surface acres. We do appreciate the support that the legislature appropriated last year. And it appears that we received note from the ag department that will receive $500,000. We estimate our expenses. Our plan it's been submitted to A&R. It's being reviewed and back and forth between our engineer and A&R, and they're really getting into the weeds. If our plan is approved as is, with the expense to be about $600,000. Now A&R, so the grant would cover the vast majority. Over the year, we've spent a lot of engineering here that the rear mirror now. A&R could come back and say our plan doesn't capture enough. Then I suspect our expenses would increase because you need to capture that water. So we're hoping to hear in a March, April timeframe that is approved. Then we can look at putting a project timeline together. I think the monies need to be spent by September of 2026. But I know
And you're on track going down.
we are. Yeah, once we get that approval and start chipping away. And we got a surprise that is unique to us, I think. The city of Essex Junction is creating a stormwater utility. And in November, I got a letter from the city manager saying our assessment will be $38,000 a year. We reached out, so we have 33 acres. All but 5 of those are being captured in our stormwater system. Only 5 acres is going into the city, but so that's an issue with the city of Essex we're working through. But it just, it's so exciting. We all want clean lakes and rivers, but the economics of it are just, they don't align.
No, they do not.
We can't charge a stormwater fee to the fairgoer as an assessment. So
So Tim, what is your plan? Is it a retention pond? Are you pumping it somewhere else? What? How are
Good
you?
question. We have a retention pond already, so we're gonna expand that one and then add a number of catch basins on the property. It's directed to the existing stormwater pond.
So you're in a more beneficial position than some of our other agriculture.
We are very fortunate, given that it's a rough one, but we consider ourselves fortunate when compared to not just the fairgrounds, other commercial property owners too.
But how much of that land does it take for you to capture all of that? I mean, it's expansion power taken away from you.
Yeah. Again, we're fortunate where our pond is kind of in the North 40. It's not really usable space for us. So again, it's easily accessible to do the work. But again, the monies we put into it, a lot of the infrastructure work we do, we had to replace a culvert last year for $100,000. It doesn't change the fairgoers experience. I'd much rather build a new building or entertainment or something for the community. The monies we have to put into these infrastructure, it's overwhelming times.
No, it is.
Tim, did you say the filters for the system are $78,000 or something like that?
That wasn't, no.
It wasn't, excuse me, wrong here. We'll get to that one.
But thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Jackie, as we're switching seats, how long has the 300,000 been that amount?
It went up from 250,000 maybe 8 years ago.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, when we visited both the economic development committees, and they both asked us to ask for more money.
Yeah.
So we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that is, yeah, you can hear what they're saying.
I tried to raise that a couple of years ago, but anyways,
Thank you.
yeah. Hi.
Hi, I'm Cindy Cahart and I'm from the Addison County PFAs. And once again, I want to thank you for the grant money. Last year, we used the grant money to stone where the rides are being placed because the year prior, we got so much rain that we had to hire a crane to get the rides out and they couldn't even run some of them. So we stoned an area so they can put up all the rides. And this year we are building what we call an antique house. It'll be a post and beam house, which one of the rooms will have all our fair memorabilia. And then there'll be a wraparound porch where they can do demonstrations of like spinning wool and stuff like that. We have one more building that we would like to build to complete our 5-year plan. Renting the big tents anymore is almost impossible and it's very expensive. Last year before the fair started, the Sunday night before the fair started and the Friday night of the fair, we lost 3 tents to wind. So we just need to build and make the infrastructure solid so that we don't have to continue the whole tent thing. And we use the fairgrounds. Our fairgrounds, we have horse shows every weekend from Memorial Day to Labor Day. In the fall, we have a benefit tractor pull, which I don't know how that might have been going on for like 15 years. And it started with one of the tractor pullers, I think had MS or something like that. So he needed a wheelchair, he needed something. So they started doing this. And now they make enough money. So they usually divide it up to like 5 families that have challenges that we donate fairgrounds for that. And a bunch of other stuff. Like the school to come over and do their bike-a-thon. It's safe off of the highway and stuff like that. We're one of the 3-acre rural people.
How are you making out?
Well, we were proactive. So right off the bat, we had it engineered. And I've only been president. This is my 2nd year. So I inherited this. The plan is going to cost $500,000 and it is going to take away from some of our land that we use right within the fair. And I was telling folks that we had a meeting with our engineer on Saturday. It was myself, and I'm a dairy farmer. I'm half a mile from the fairgrounds and I live on Otter Creek. So water programs I'm familiar with. We have done every water quality thing necessary. And one of our directors is a lawyer. There was the engineer, there's our groundskeeper. One of our directors has an excavation business. And I said, you know, it seems like with all our different capacities and all our minds, we ought to be able to come up with something that works. So the director that has the excavation business says, well, we have a 300-foot ditch at the west end of the fairground. Why couldn't we do something there? And the engineer said, well, maybe you could. After we've already spent $40,000 on this convoluted proprietary material treatment pond, and the material's got to come from Pennsylvania, and so right now we're in the midst of trying to figure out if we can use that ditch that's already collects the water that, you know, and make it a gravel filter, and hopefully so we're gonna have more engineer bills, but it would just make so much more sense for the fairgrounds. And that's, I guess, my biggest problem is it just doesn't make sense to do some of the things the way they're doing it. And I don't feel like I have a different point of view as a dairy farmer, but I know how to make things work when we don't have a lot of money. It's the long and the short.
When you put your
of it.
hard surface down, you get the rides out of the mud. Did that include your impervious surface?
That is added to it, but we had our plan made 3 years ago, and it's a snapshot in time. So
Yeah.
we're already
Right.
not in compliance with our plan, and the new building we're building this year, and then we have one more. You know, I said to him, I said, why can't you take our 5-year plan and do something according to that? Then we have our infrastructure, and then he said it's a snapshot in time. So, and then I asked him, I said, so I'm familiar with water quality programs. What's it gonna cost to maintain this? And he said, oh, you know that. On top of the permit fee that ours is $2,600 now that we pay for 3 years, and we don't even have a system yet, but you still have to keep paying. So, you know, it's all those added on costs that are, you know, I think the $500,000 will make us have a good system, but it's the costs that come down the road that we're still gonna have to deal with. And hopefully we can use our 300-foot ditch, and it won't cost $5,000, so somebody else has more money to do their stormwater.
So Cindy, did DEC give you any indication how quickly they're gonna determine whether that 300-foot ditch is gonna work?
No, I mean, the engineer has to submit it, and he had somebody he was gonna call, and, you know, he looked at the plan, and I was very frustrated because he's the one that we've talked to all the time. And we've asked him these questions before, but on Saturday, he said, well, I didn't even design this. I don't know why he did it this way.
Engineer battles.
Oh my God. So it's just like, yeah.
So I did speak to Julie on this, and asked her about your 5-year plan. And after speaking to her, she was like, well, if you design it to a 5-year plan, they take the snapshot of time. And the reason they have to do that is now you're meeting today's rules 5 years down the line. But if you built it for the 5 years,
Right.
you might have to alter it a little bit. So
Right.
I hope that you.
That's what we're
Okay,
planning on doing.
But it did check.
Building it
Yeah.
too big
Yes.
so that we don't have to
Yeah.
run into it down the road. Yeah, great.
The glitch that we have is that the 2 million that's sitting over in the Agency of Ag has to be spent by September 2026. But the problem that you'll hear from Rutland is that they will not release any of the money unless you have an approved permit.
Right.
And that Rutland will tell you how that's not gonna work for them. So, and we're not sure where Orleans is in the, because you just submitted your plan. So there's a time constraint that at least two of the fairs are under right now.
And have they indicated why it takes so long to, you have an engineer design up the plan? They go, why is it taking so long from the time you submit the plan to getting an answer on?
From my engineer, at least what I'm being told, I'm not sure what Tim's being told, I'm being told that there's a 6-month backlog.
They're just overwhelmed.
That A&R has a 6-month current backlog, so if you get into the
So
system
they created a
now,
problem that they're now.
they now have a backlog. And they can't process them fast enough. And what Tim's finding out as well, I believe, and you can jump in, but you submit it and then they bounce it back and say, well, we don't think this is quite up to spec. We want to see you alter this. And then that you're in the back and forth process. And I've been told that could take up to 3 months as well.
If I could add in, we submitted our plan in July of 24 and didn't hear anything until October. And then the email exchange between our engineer and A&R, I'm copying on them, talked about getting into the weeds. I mean, he's, clarify this, clarify this, clarify this. So our engineer, $150 an hour, has to reply. And it's just, it's overwhelming.
I suggested, why don't we, I mean, our fairgrounds is just in the middle of the field. And I said, why don't we test the water that comes out of both? We have 2 spots where it does drain to and through. I said, we just test that and see how bad our stormwater runoff is. I mean, you might be treating something that you don't even need to treat.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Our gates are locked.
Right, it's flowed.
6 months of the
It's
year.
flowed through the filter, the natural filter system to
Right.
get there
Right.
and to flow out. So, yeah.
Well, I always tell the story, my farm is boundaries with our fairgrounds. And we live on the same road and it's the same hill behind. And so you have to collect the water coming off the hill, over the road, under the road. And what we built was with NRCS was a grass waterway. So it just filters its way down to the same stream that Fairgrounds has. There's the same swamp in front of the same stream that the fairground has. And when they ended the ditch, I said, well, you just stopped there. It doesn't look like it's finished. I said, why? And he said, because the swamp filters the water. And it's the exact same thing. I mean, our property is just eroding between it. So I just am bewildered by the whole situation. And
You're not.
I tried to be positive and we were proactive and did it right off the bat. But, it just doesn't make sense.
How many years of the fair?
We've been at that site for 62 years.
2 years. Tim,
Yeah.
how many years?
102.
2. Yeah.
Before we were there, the fair used to go around from farm to farm. I mean, the fair is older, but it's been on that fairgrounds for 6
So there's all these old systems collecting all the rainwater from all those old fairs.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Appreciate
Thanks
it
for
very much.
listening and
Yeah,
thanks for all you
always.
do.
Always.
Jason?
Thank you for meeting with all of us and thank you for all your support. Orleans County Fairgrounds is.
You know who you are, just for the.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Jason Seacard, the Orleans County Fair. We've been very fortunate, Fairgrounds for many years receiving grants and doing different projects over time. And about 3 years ago, maybe 4, the local 4-H club, Kingdom Hoofbeats, came to us and wanted to make an improvement on the grounds and wanted to benefit. And they wanted something that was safer for the animals, safer for the people, and more modernized for them to grow. And their group, it was slow at the start, but they were out there raising money and they got the push on and the fair board agreed to go in that direction with the structure. The current spot we're at with it now, we have 3 years worth of capital grants that we have, which purchase materials. And that effort of those kids in that 4-H club has matched that dollar for dollar
Oh, yeah, that's great.
So that's very impressive. It's very stimulating to get that out of the community, to see that they're responding and they're able to build off of what comes out of the legislation funds. And as some of us, others have spoke, the building costs and the materials have grown so much, even from the start of this project, that we are seeing our budget like we've got to keep grasping that more. And if there is that possibility to see it in the state budget for all affairs, it will be absorbed well. The 3 acre rule does affect us. We're on the Memphremagog watershed. We've got a large property. We're I think 27 acres on existing, and then we added property that almost doubles our size and our footprint. And we have visions of where we want to go. And we have problems with water on our grounds. So some of this in aspect is things we can see help us improve, because we have some pretty flat grounds in our ability to have that exit goes to the community, but it's like half a mile. It's a long ways. It's a very slow pitch. So it doesn't move off well. So in that part of it, we can see where it could help us some. But when you look at the whole program as a whole, the 3 acre thing, and we're all here as Bear members, but we're also other parts of the community that we deal with. And it's tough to understand after we've been punched in the face twice with a very bad flooding, and to see the damage not being able to get to in certain areas because it's not essential, right, to make our road system or our egress and all work. And that's not where we're putting our money. We're putting it in areas. And I think that when she brought up the point of why do we test the water from start to finish, that isn't a bad idea across the board, not just in the fair, but across the board. Like, and try to use those monies in a better manner.
Right.
Overall, right? We all walked across our land. We know I know it started out as a good direction and a good thought, but I think it's on the track.
I think the reason why I said to Cindy about putting down what did that count in the overall picture of things is because that's what we're hearing. Well,
Yeah.
we just had to put, we filled this spot in and we were sick of the mud, and then all of a sudden that cost us more. That cost us more. That was more impervious surface that was there, but it's the same thing. It's the darn same thing.
It seemed like some chatter I heard earlier today was that 30 years plus years ago, that there was agreement with the state and the feds and what that level was of water quality. And it's so far back in time. What are we, did we set our standard here and the rest of New England is near us, but not it?
Well, we've asked that question before. We've asked about, okay, well, what's New York doing? Where are they at with their plan? And the same watershed as the Lake Champlain watershed, and where's Quebec? And I do think that we've set our standards higher. And unfortunately, we had a chance to do something different because they gave us the latitude as far as, okay, what type of plan that you were what type of plan are you gonna have? And then we came up with the 3 acres. And I wish we would have said 10 or 15, but we didn't at that time. And so you can't go backwards. You can't let the genie out of the bottle or put it back in. But yeah, so where are you with your plan as far as with the Orleans County Fair?
So it's I don't know what they call the first step, but that's been
The engineering, yeah.
And he's working on a model.
Okay, good. So within the guidelines, and if everything goes okay, you should be able to get the monies out the door by the deadline of the 2026.
I hope so, right?
Okay.
Like, I hope so. Because we don't fully know what he wants on paper yet to really project what that takes for time. But I would hope that we could get that figured out. And obviously, when there's a deadline of money, we're going to work extra hard to prepare it if that's what we have to do.
Yep.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Jason.
Robert. Well, good afternoon.
Jason, how many years?
For our fairgrounds? Yeah, we've got 158 under our belt. I don't know all the days that we had it and didn't have it because of, well, I do know we missed COVID, but I don't know about the wartime and that type of data.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Vermont State Fair, Robert Congdon, from Rutland. Thank you for taking time this morning to meet with us. Before I dive into 3 Acre, just want to thank you for the stipends and the grants. We also have been working very hard on our infrastructure. We focused heavily on our bathrooms to get them up to spec, and I'm pleased to report that with the grant that just got approved, we can build our last handicap accessible bathroom, and we won't have to rent any porta potties going forward, which is great. We also are working on sill replacements under our really historic barns to preserve them for the next generation as well. And then there's some other handicap accessibility type things that we're working on, as well as one of the things that has popped up is we have to do our first phase, which is on our lower section, really not in the grandstand, but we have to start putting in handrails. So we're working on that this year as well. Diving into 3 Acres, we are the poster child, which you are well aware of. And I know maybe Senator Collmore shared my letter that I sent up a week or so ago. We are really in a conundrum. We are really in a very, very difficult situation where we actually are at an impasse. And we are at a point where we can't proceed at this point. We're basically dead in the water is the best way to put it, that we can't really do anything. So I'll pass these around. These are our current feasibility study maps, which everybody can take one. Our situation is that we are located, the Muzzy Brook runs directly through our property, which because of that, the DEC and ANR have declared that an impaired watershed. And under the 3 Acre requirements, as soon as a watershed becomes impaired, your 3 Acre rule requirements go from a 50% treatment requirement to 100% treatment and retention, I should say. So because we are on an impaired watershed, that means that the emphasis of our property goes from treatment to actually retention. They want us to capture the stormwater and they want us to retain it. So on these maps, the blue rectangles, there's 2 of them. There's one in the oval inside the racetrack, and then there's one over in our ag area near the Nandigo Arena. Those are actually going to be underground water storage facilities that have to hold the water for a minimum of 24 hours before they can be released. Our initial feasibility study has us currently placed at about $3.7 million. That includes up to $200,000 in engineering costs alone, which is why I'm dead in the water. We cannot access any funds to help pay for engineering right now, and I can't proceed to get a permit without engineering. And we do not have $150,000 to $200,000 in the bank that we can spend. It's just not there. So on a fair that runs on $450,000 budget, that we're lucky to come out $30,000 to $50,000 in the black at the end of the year. I just don't have $150,000 to spend on engineering. And my engineer at this point says that we are going to miss out on our share of the $2 million. Because of the fact that if he started working full-time today, it's going to take him roughly a year to engineer this site, because it's not, we're 75 acres spread out, unlike an existing stormwater system that just needs to be added to, like what's Tim's case, or, being ultimate, we're in the city. I mean, we're not out. I kind of envy those that are out really in the countryside that have access to, other ground. And part of what causes our price tag to be so high is ultimately these areas are areas that I truly can't afford to give up. So they have to go underground so that we can still park cars on top, that we can still utilize the property in the process of that. So none of this infrastructure exists. And what my engineers described to us is basically take a vacant lot and imagine having to build from the ground up. And he said, that's what we're doing. He said, we have to build from the ground up. And the other unknown that we have is we're going to hit electrical lines. We're going to hit water lines. We're going to hit existing sewer, which we're old enough property that it's all clay tile. So as soon as you touch it, it crumbles. And it's just absolutely astronomical, the costs that are going to continue to mount in this process. We also are in the middle of a bit of a tug of war, because the city really wants to get that impaired status removed from that brook because it affects them as well. And the easiest place that they see to target treatment for their city and get city credit is us because we're open ground. So they're looking to us and pulling on us, wanting to put in to get credits for the city to be able to benefit them, which we want to be team players. But literally some of the things that are on my map right here as a part of our 3-acre plan are also on the city municipal plan. And the two agencies don't talk to each other. They may be a cubicle apart up here, but they really don't talk to each other, which is extremely frustrating. And I have, the planning commission for the city wanting us to basically sign a letter that's a blank check to say that you can do whatever you want on our property to benefit the city, which we're not going to do because it's got to be mutually agreeable for everybody. About 3 weeks ago, we had a meeting, Jackie was on it as well, with Agency of Agriculture. There was at least one A&R representative, and DEC had a couple representatives on there. And we asked some hard questions. We asked, what does this mean? Are we, putting out of business a 179-year-old tradition? Is that where we're headed? And the silence on the call was quite telling. Nobody had an answer, and nobody jumped in to say, "Oh, we won't let that happen." No, nobody went there, which was really, we're all like many of the fairs, we're all volunteers. I don't get paid for this position. We're literally volunteering our time because we've worked very hard to get this fair back from bankruptcy. And really pleased that we can sit here today and say that we're on pretty solid ground compared to where we used to be. And then before the call was over, we essentially begged. We came down to begging and saying, would you please come down and do a site visit? Would you let us walk you around the site so that you can see the difficulty that we're facing? And we pretty much got told no, that the only thing that they could potentially do was set up a Zoom call for us. And it just feels like it's a brick wall. I was here yesterday. I'm here today. I drive the hour, we drive the hour and a half to come up, but the agency can't drive the hour and a half to us to come out and see our site and to have a face-to-face conversation on the location. And that's difficult. That's really disheartening when it comes down to this. So we are literally in a stalemate. To correct a little bit of the timeline, my understanding is your engineering, which I know Jason's really up against the timeline, the engineering would essentially have to go into A&R now with the 6-month backlog to get an approved permit. My understanding is, yes, the work has to be done by 2026, but what we're currently being told by Agency of Agriculture and DEC's memorandum of understanding is that the permit would need to be in hand by late September of this year in order to even qualify you to spend it before 2026. So basically your permit's got to be going in this month to even get the back and forth done that Tim's already in the process of, to get your permit in hand so that you don't miss out on that $2 million that you all were so graciously willing to fight for. I know this committee fought hard to get that $2 million set aside. And we've asked the hard question of, okay, so at least we can keep momentum going. Can you open up our 500,000 and at least let us use a portion of it to go towards the engineering? And we were told no. So it seems like we're, particularly in Rutland's case, we're hitting a roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And I've been asked by multiple people, why don't you just give up? I'm not there. I'm not a quitter. So we're going to continue pushing on. The other thing that has been really disappointing, and we're almost, again, 179 years this year, and we've now had, I think, 2 state agencies and even our engineer ask us, what are you willing to tear down? What are you willing to rip up? What are you willing to tear down? And and in my case, some of these buildings my grandfather had built when he was president of the fair back in the 60s and 70s. So to think about, tearing down infrastructure that it tears at your heart. So happy to take questions, but sorry for the bad news, bad picture from us. So
yeah, I don't know how to even start with this. In terms of the funding being available to solve a problem which you didn't create, it's kind of like a dog chasing its tail to me. It doesn't make any sense at all. I think we ought to have some farmers on the DEC piece of this to as Cindy mentioned, they seem to have an innate ability to figure things out, and make it work. As I understand it, and for those of you that aren't as familiar with the Rutland site, it's completely surrounded by other people's property. So they're kind of fixed in a situation where they can't even wiggle a little bit. As Robert said, if they do give up pieces of the acreage, that's where the rides are.
Yeah.
So now we don't have any more rides, or we charge people $700, $800 a ticket to get into the Vermont State Fair. That's ludicrous. That ain't gonna happen. So I don't know what to tell you. I really don't. I firmly believe that when the EPA started this whole TMDL with the Lake Champlain basin, that the fairs were never intended to be included. And somehow it got by everybody, and now they are, and nobody's willing to back it out. We tried last year, Senator Starr, when he was the chair of this committee, to exempt the fairs, just say they don't count, they don't have to worry, but didn't go anywhere. And the other really frustrating piece of this to me is, from what I understand, the fees or the fines, I look at them as fines that you're going to have to pay, don't solve the problem. They're just money that we're throwing to the state again to give to somebody else to figure out their problem.
So out of our current proposal of $3.7 million, about 160 some odd thousand of that's going to be impact fees, because feasibly we cannot collect 100% of the water on the site. It's impossible. There's no way to do it. And I've also, just as a side note, I've been asked even today in a couple of the committees, well, why can't you just plug into the municipal system? Rutland is already a municipal system that's experiencing repeated overflows and putting more stormwater into that system. It's just zero. There's no chance of that. Nor would Ann Arbor allow it, I don't think, with their current overflows. So because of that, and all that's going on with this, that $165,000, $170,000, we're going to pay. It's going to go into the pot, and the next Walmart that wants to come into the state might be able to apply for that money and be able to put in their stormwater system. And that just seems so backwards to me, that the fees that we're going to have to ultimately end up paying are going to benefit potentially a big box store, which is what this law was originally intended to deal with. That was the original, and everybody I run into, whether it's legislature, whether it's the environmental lobby that we run into upstairs, all of them are saying you were never intended to be a part of this. And I guess and again, I come from a farmer background as well, so maybe we're when it comes to it, maybe more pragmatic about some of this. So if we weren't intended, what's the holdup in getting it fixed? Right. If we weren't intended to be a part of it, why are we still a part of it? Let's solve the problem. Yeah. And I know that school systems are dealing with it. I know that, there's a lot, and I also know that there've been multiple sites that have had unintended consequences when it comes to Act 250 as well that have come out of this. So there's just a lot of different layers to this that just seem overly complicated on something that should be so simple.
I know we have a meeting with the Rutland delegation next Monday with Robert, and I'm not expecting that just all of a sudden going to be a bolt of lightning. Somebody says, "Hey, I got the solution," but we're going to definitely support fixing this for you to some degree. I know there's also a bill that's been introduced by one of the Chittenden senators. It's actually Senator Chittenden from and he is going to, I hope, gain some traction. It just monkeys with the dates. It pushes the implementation out a little bit. So it doesn't technically really fix anything. It just delays the implementation, from what I understand.
Sure.
I don't know where that bill is going to go. It would give you some breathing room, but as is unfortunately true, every week, every year that we wait, the costs keep going up too. So it doesn't put a freeze on that piece of it.
And basically what I'm being described right now is that there's no magic $3.7 million pot that's going to be sent to Rutland. Like we don't have the access to that. And the reason we're dead in the water also is, again, I don't have the potentially $150,000 to $200,000 engineering this piece of paper right here, this costs between 10 and 12,000 just to get a feasibility study to get this on paper. And it took 8 months to get here. So, you know, this was a long process just to get this. And we asked DEC, well, why can't we have an estimate now? Why can't we start the process with the estimate and free up that money and let's keep the process going? And again, no, was it full flat out? No, not until that permit is in hand. And we were even suggested, well, fill in the permit with parts of it blank. And we said, and add your drawings to the permit, and we'll at least start you basically in line. And hopefully by the time we get to you, you'll be able to finish filling it in or whatever. And we said, we don't even have architectural construction drawings. We just have this. And that's part of the problem. That's what's going to take us probably a year out. I think we were told essentially, you know, we'd be lucky if we had it by May or June of next year. So I guess if there's any bright side to any of this right now is DEC is telling us that, you know, we're in the pot with all the other businesses, which some at this point have just ignored this and have not done anything with it. Others are in the backlog like we are. I don't know if there's others that are in the situation where they can't pay for engineering. Certainly we're in that position. But until that catch-22 gets resolved, the clock is kind of standing still for us. There's no progression. There's no going backwards. And again, you know, 75 acres, figuring out 16.9, you know, where does all this water go? What water can you not capture? Is just a really convoluted mess. It's an absolute mess. So,
Well, 3 of us here are affected with Orleans, Addison, and Rutland. The 2 other senators, because there's 4 affairs that have so far been impacted by this 3-acre rule. I don't know what we're going to do on the eastern side. That's for somebody else to figure out later, but it's not a phosphorus issue anyway. We understand it's nitrogen. So there'll be different ways to solve it. So I think it is something that we all really got to take some real interest in and try to figure a way out. I don't know what else to do except the fairs.
Well, what other good news you have?
I'm sorry. And that was a non-starter. We tried to.
Seemed like it. Yeah. We might have to revisit that.
Yeah.
Well, I
So,
think the issue was when we asked for an exemption, we were looking at all 4 fairs. And very clearly now, with 3 of them being able to deal with this to some capacity, the issue is more Rutland than anything else.
Right.
I know we were in Senate Economic Development this morning and Senator Chittenden was all ears on this.
Well, we might work with Senator Chittenden and maybe we'll see how we can change this bill up. And maybe bring him in and talk about his bill a little bit. And maybe we, as a committee, we'll try to adjust that because that is a good idea.
Yeah.
And then we can, if we can get Rutland exempted, we can take the rest of that pot of money and hopefully split it amongst the other 3 because it's not like all 3 of you don't need it. As far as to do the plans up, but we'll saying that out loud for everybody to hear. We're gonna take a swing at it. I can tell you that. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is Rutland planning on building any more buildings? Or you pretty much are just gonna improve what you got?
so we are in a situation where the only thing that we really want to build going forward is we want to rebuild a stage. I don't think it's going to affect our impervious surface because there's already a gravel pad in front of the grandstand and that's already considered impermeable and we're going to build in that area. So I don't think in the long term, based on my understanding of the current reg, I think we're going to be okay on that, but they're not going to potentially throw the book at us for that. But in the long term, there's no immediate plans to do any major construction.
I think the other word that we're looking at is grandfathering. Because I think if you look at that 3-acre rule, it does talk specifically about those who were not grandfathered. And so if I think we're looking at an exemption first just to get us out of this pickle, but I'm wondering if a grandfather for the Rutland Fair would be just
Or any fair over 60 years old?
Well, there you go. We're all amenable to that. I think that might be another way to resolve the issue.
What was the date that that 80?
I think it was 2002.
So if you had a permit before that, you
You
were
were grandfathered. Or if you didn't need one, because there were no rules at that time. I think
Right.
that's how that goes. But it was in the rules, not the
Yeah.
statute. So that's why I'm thinking grandfathering might be,
Okay.
Well, I think
And
3
the-
out of 4 are coming into compliance is a pretty darn good number.
Yeah.
I think so.
And there's,
So,
we just both on.
Well, we heard that there were, when I was listening 2 weeks ago, they had DEC into House Environment. And they said there were 677 lucky people on this list. And I believe 7 have completed their project in 4 years. That's pretty telling.
sweet, yeah. What else? We get everybody through?
We
I
did.
think I was the last one, yeah. Again, aside from all of the negative, you need to hear the positive. I mean, I think that the realities of what's been accomplished by all the fairs, with the seed money really that is able to be plugged in. I know for us, it's been game changing. You know, it's no secret that we clawed back from bankruptcy. I mean, that's where we were. We shouldn't be sitting here today. And the fact that we are is a testament to a lot of hard work by a lot of people. And the grant monies, have done a huge impact on our facility. And, you know, to hear the numbers today, from, Tunbridge and from Addison, them sharing, you know, and to hear that our attendance is basically right along now, we've come back to that point. Certainly, we've got a long way to go to where we used to be, but to hear that we've now, you know, surpassed some of those numbers is really exciting to hear, from my standpoint. And I hope that this doesn't spell the end for us. That's what we're just keeping an eye on. We don't want it to be the end. So.
Well, I want to thank you guys for being community members. When you look at what Champlain Valley's doing over there as far as opening up their fairgrounds and the others as well to get to allow the communities to come in and to have spaces. I want to thank you for that, but also want to thank you for what you got to do for the agriculture committee. I mean, the community as far as to keep agriculture alive and well and to be growing up young minds as far as folks that want to come and get into that business. We want to thank you for that very well. We're gonna take a swing at this. I think just looking around the room and seeing the nodding of heads amongst my committee, our committee, that we can probably take a swing at this. We'll see where we end up with that, but we will take a swing. So. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for the gifts. We appreciate that very much.
I like the piece on CAX there.
Thank you.
That's it.